Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 1ND podcast channel. I'm your host, Vikas, joined by my co-host, Sagar. Today, we're going to be going over our NFL sports betting odds, and we're going to give you our predictions and our top 5 bets for this week.
Exactly. And before we get into that, let's go over a weekly recap for last week. If my PowerPoint wants to work. There we go. So last week, pretty good. You did really well. You had a chance of being 5-0. I had a chance of being 4-1, and that would have been really awesome. But the Bears had a doo-doo performance against the Rams. That was just totally disappointing. It may impact how we bet this week. And so
I think it will, actually, because going into the game, the Rams, they've had some shaky performances, like with the Giants, let's say. And then the Bears, they had limited some great offenses, like the Bucks, for example. Granted, the Bucks were hurt that week, but we had higher expectations for the Bears. And also, Nick Foles just looked so out of sync, and it didn't look like the Bears' offense is going to click going further, at least on a consistent basis. I should also mention we have another friend on the call. He may chime in whenever he'd like. His name is also Sagar. So it'll be confusing, but that's okay.
Hello, this is Sagar, everyone.
Okay, now you can go back on.
Chime in on a little bit of what I saw last week, too, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps you predict this week, then yeah, whatever intelligent analysis you have, we are all ears.
All right, so with the Rams-Bears game, I thought that one was really interesting, and I totally agree with you because I think the Rams had some shaky performances in the past. What they showed was that they're getting in sync. I think they have the wide receiver talent in order to do so. Their defense is stepping up, being the defense that it was thought to be at the beginning. With the Bears, Nick Foles did look out of sync. The Bears are 5-1 right now going in, and I have a feeling they're not going to be lasting on the winning streak much more.
I think they're 5-2 now. 5-2.
5-2 after this week.
Yep.
And so I have a feeling even this upcoming week they're not going to do as hot as they have been doing, despite Khalil Mack, on the defensive line.
Gotcha.
It definitely, they're a shaky team. I also think that Rams offense can be shaky and can be exploited at times. But hey, this is last week's results. As you can see, Sagar went 3-2. I went 4-1. We made money both ways, and our overall records for the season, Sagar's 10-9-1. I'm 13-6-1. Really wanted that 5-0 last week, but
yeah.
Hey, I'll take a 4-1.
And hey, that means if you've been betting with us throughout the last 4 weeks now, you would have been green and made some decent money.
Yes, sir.
All right, so
shall we just start?
Yeah, dude. Okay, so let's move on to the first game of Week 8. According to Bovada, that's going to be the Falcons against the Panthers. The Falcons found a way to blow another lead last week to the Lions. Sucked for Todd Gurley. He stopped at the goal line prior. This time it just didn't work out. Stafford came back and led a game-winning drive. I feel like this week I'm going to go with the Panthers just because they had such a strong performance against the Saints, who also did really well despite not having Michael Thomas. And being competitive with the Saints like that just tells you that the Falcons and the Panthers are on different levels in terms of what their teams are capable of. And this is just not a year for the Falcons. And the fact that it's only -3, I'm going to lean Panthers on this. I think this is going to be easily exploitable defense that Teddy Bridgewater is going to carve up. Christian McCaffrey may be coming back. Not too sure on his overall status. That could be another game changer. So I'm definitely betting Panthers, and it's in my top 5.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. The Falcons looked all out of sorts. That Lions defense is not good, and the Falcons were not able to take advantage. Todd Gurley was. Unfortunately, he couldn't stop his momentum to ice the game. And Matt Stafford, one of the most clutch players in history, actually. He came back down the field, mainly the Kenny Golladay, and won the game. And so going forward, the Falcons defense is just so exploitable, and that Falcons offense, mainly due to Matt Ryan, just isn't as consistent as they once were. I mean, you've still got that offensive firepower. Julio Jones is back, and you can see Matt Ryan, he immediately stepped up once Julio Jones came back. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is the new wide receiver 1 on the team, just by virtue of Julio Jones getting the tougher coverage all the time, I believe. But even when Julio was out, Calvin Ridley did produce. And so, besides that one game against the Packers where he had 0 yards, but that was due to Matt Ryan underthrowing him. So the Falcons offense, porous. I believe the Panthers and Falcons already played this season, and the Panthers came out on top. Final score was 23-16, and that was Falcons home. This is Panthers home, and I believe the Panthers can take this again. Mike Davis looked great the first time around against the Falcons. Hopefully he can bring that back for my fantasy team. Robbie Anderson had a great time against that Falcons defense, and I think Teddy Bridgewater, slowly but surely, is getting used to that offense and really managing it very well. And I think the Panthers are a good team that can exploit the Falcons' misfortunes this season. And so, yes, I'll also be taking Panthers -3 in my top 5. Do you have anything to say, Sagar?
And yeah, Sagar, I think I heard you. So you have anything to chime in on?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty well-matched game between the two teams. When you look at the defensive and offensive comparison, these are two high-yardage teams. I think the big difference is going to come down to the reason I think I'm also going for the Panthers is the Falcons allow 75 more yards on defense. They're one of the most forgiving defensive teams, and when you look at what Teddy Bridgewater has done building his rapport with his two wide receivers, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, who have really started to explode. I think as Mike Davis finds his groove in this offense as well, they're going to start to produce. Where it's going to be an interesting matchup is to see if the Falcons offense is going to be able to exploit Carolina's poor run defense, which has allowed 124 yards on average per game. So if they're able to get something going, whether it's with Gurley or Brian Hill, then the Falcons have a chance to score more points like they have been over this season than Carolina. So it's going to be a pretty well-matched game. I think if you go with the spread, I would still go with the Panthers just because the odds are even, but it could be close by the spread.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? The Todd Gurley, overall this season, he's looked up and down, yards per carry wise. But last time against the Panthers, he had 14 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown. Great performance. Another thing to note, Julio Jones was hurt last time, did not play in the Panthers versus Falcons game. That's another big factor. He's a huge part of the offense, huge part of whenever Matt Ryan decides to do well. And so it'll be a closer game, probably, but I believe that Falcons defense will just be the game changer for the Panthers, and I think the Panthers will have no problem scoring against that defense.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. In my top 5, I know you were thinking of putting it in your top 5, but you went with another pick that we'll talk about later.
Right.
We can move on to the next matchup for Week 8. We have the Los Angeles Rams against the Miami Dolphins. And the Rams came off a strong victory against a 5-2 Bears team like we talked about. Despite that, they're not really like Dolphins aren't giving too many points here. It's only 4 points. So a field goal and then a point. I like the odds for the Rams. The other big unknown is Tua. Tua, came off that injury. They say he's medically cleared to play. I don't know how he's going to do. It's always a big question mark. The Rams defense, like we talked about, is looking a little better. Aaron Donald, man, he can pressure the quarterback. So if that Dolphins O-line is not ready and Tua is not in sync, you look for Donald to have a big day. I don't like this matchup. I don't know how Tua is going to do. And since it's a big unknown, typically don't like betting these games. I'd rather it be a big point spread or you don't know how a certain player is going to perform. I typically lean away, but if I were to bet in this game, I would take the Rams -4.
Yeah, this is a tougher one too, right? Usually a great defensive line can exploit a rookie quarterback, but man, as of late, these rookie quarterbacks have been insane, right? You see Justin Herbert coming in, lighting up the Chiefs on last second notice. He didn't even know he was going to play until, a couple minutes before game time. And then obviously Joe Burrow's done well. And so we'll see how Tua does. That's a big question mark. He could light up that secondary just because of his quick passing game. And I believe, dude, I don't know why, but left-handed quarterbacks, they're just so fun to watch to me. They kind of bring a different element to the game. But it's a tough one. I like the Dolphins' defense. They've gotten much better as the season has progressed, and they seem to be coming into their own. That being said, the Rams did go against a great defense last week in the Bears, and I won't say they had no problem scoring, but they did well, right? Jared Goff threw 2 touchdowns, and overall they looked great, and that Rams defense also stepped up. But in my opinion, that was more a virtue of Nick Foles not doing well, and I believe David Montgomery didn't rush very well either, and so game script did not go in the Bears' favor. It was totally in the Rams' favor, and so we'll see. The Rams are full of potential, but this is a game I'm staying away from betting wise. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the Rams just because it's the debut of Tua.
Yeah, and just to build on your point about, defensive lines and rookie quarterbacks, one of the reasons that quarterbacks, especially in college, are doing well against these big teams like Alabama who are known for defense is because they're mobile, right? And Tua is a mobile guy, so he could have success. And again, that's why those unknowns are why we stay away from these games. Sagar, I heard you bleep in. Do you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I think the big question mark here is going to be Gaskin and whether or not he's going to be able to exploit the Rams' run defense, because obviously the passing defense against Tua is going to be a bit of a question mark. We're not really able to predict that and how he's going to do in his first NFL start. I think the only other concern I would have is that the Rams did play on Monday, and I wonder if that's gonna, they're coming off a shorter week.
Yeah, no, those are definitely can be big concerns. I know typically with Thursday night games, it's a little harder to predict because you have that shorter prep time, and in the NFL, every day those every 24 hours are important, and they're used to the maximum. So yeah, coming off a short week also means that they don't have enough time to prepare for Tua, and they don't know what to prepare for Tua with. Do they use college film? There really was no offseason, so they don't have any film on him from there. And that makes him a big unknown and could be an upset. So we'll see.
We could also see Ryan Fitzpatrick come in the second half if Tua doesn't do well and then light up that Rams secondary to, I don't know, mess up that line, So, a bunch of question marks to this game. Tough game to bet on, and for that reason, I'm staying away.
Yeah, definitely. I would stay away too. One thing I would say, though, is that the Dolphins have a lot of confidence right now in Tua. When you look at the coach and the fellow players, they're putting him in this week for a reason. And even though Fitzpatrick has been doing moderately well, he has twice the interception rate as the Rams. That said, it's going to be Tua's game to show that he can be the future of this franchise. And I think a lot of people are pretty excited for that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so moving on to the next game of Week 8, we have the Indianapolis Colts with Phillip Rivers against Matthew Stafford, who just came back on the Falcons. I really don't know how to feel about this game. I'm a Colts fan. But the competition we faced this year, it hasn't really been the greatest. And that's one of the reasons before the season started, I predicted we'd make the playoffs. Our schedule, the strength of our schedule is really, really bad. We've played some really bad teams. We lost to the Browns, who I also think are not really in that playoff tier. And so this would be a good litmus test for both teams. We'll see which one or the other is legitimate. The Lions came off a shaky win against the Falcons, who are also bad, so they didn't look the greatest. And the Colts, that defense, very good, top tier over the first few weeks of the season, let up a few more points against the Browns and in the later half so far. I'm really interested to see how this goes. If I had to bet, I would take the Colts -3 because I believe their defense is, the real deal. And I believe that they can stop the Lions. A big factor that could influence that is the play calling the Lions choose to implement, both in the red zone and in their running game. Are they going to continue to use Adrian Peterson, or are they going to start to finally use Swift in a more bell cow role? So we'll see how it goes. I'm staying away, but if I had to bet, I'd take Colts -3.
That's a good. That's a decent prediction. I think the Colts are definitely overrated. It's appalling to me that the Texans had to start the season with Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers, Packers, right, and then the Colts get to start the season with Jaguars, Vikings, Jets, right?
And we lost one of those.
The juxtaposition is insane. Yes, you lost to the Jaguars, which is insane to me. But the Colts do look good. Phillip Rivers is slowly but surely getting better. Jonathan Taylor's getting more used to being that bell cow running back in the league. He's got that potential, and credit to him, he's looking better every game, honestly. That being said, he hasn't played very many good teams, but given the Colts schedule, shouldn't be a problem going forward. A big factor is the Lions and how they decide to call their plays. For example, 4th and 1, the game was tied 7-7, I believe, against the Falcons, and they were 4th and goal, right? And I believe it was on the 5-yard line. They chose to go with Adrian Peterson, who hasn't been efficient within the 5-yard line this season, and he got stuffed. Whereas you see the numbers with DeAndre Swift, he's very efficient within the 5-yard line. And you can see them now leaning more towards him as they get closer to the goal line and then the red zone. And so I believe they're learning as they go, where to use Swift, where his strengths are, and where Adrian Peterson's strengths are too, because he's not going away. He's looked great this season. He doesn't look like he looks like he's 28 years old. Like he just looks insane for someone of his age. And so Adrian Peterson's not going away, but I think the emergence of Kenny Golladay, he's come back and he's looked great. He was integral in that last second drive against the Falcons, and man, Matt Stafford's looking great too, and he's throwing it to DeAndre Swift, Kenny Golladay, he's throwing the open man. TJ Hawkinson's a great guy in the end zone. And so as the season progresses, Matt Stafford's getting better and better because of, he's coming back from a crazy injury, and he doesn't look the greatest yet. He doesn't look like the Matt Stafford of a few years ago, but he just led them to a game-winning drive. I'll buy it. Probably shouldn't have been that close, given the Falcons' defense and how close they were to scoring multiple times. But I don't know. I feel like this Colts defense, they showed a little bit of susceptibility. They didn't look the greatest against the Bengals in the first half, at least. Joe Burrow was able to score 20-something points in a quarter and a half, and then credit to the Colts defense, they shut him down the rest of the game. But we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, not the Detroit Lions, right? And so it's a tougher one. It wouldn't be in my top 5, and I'm not going to bet this, but just to troll you, I'd pick Lions +3.
Okay, well, thoughts appreciated.
Do you have anything to say about this one, Sagar?
I think he's good on this one. He hates the Colts, I know that.
Yep, it's a tough one to bet anyway. It's like kind of a lackluster game, honestly. Mm-hmm. Lions home, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Next game, we have the Las Vegas Raiders against the Cleveland Browns. Now, fun fact, the Bucs destroyed the Raiders, but I don't give that loss that much legitimacy. One, well, there's only one reason, COVID, right? Their entire offensive line had COVID. Like, that's going to impact how you do on offense, especially with that amazing Bucs defensive line. And
only one player had COVID. The 4 others that were quarantined were able to play the game.
Oh, they were? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, interesting. Still, though, like that Bucs defensive line is looking great. A rookie we drafted a year ago, Devin White, is, oh my God, he's looking like a defensive player of the year kind of guy. And so, like, I feel like the Bucs defense really can expose certain offenses. Not necessarily the case with the Browns. I think the Browns are, they get exposed by the good teams, right? So they're clearly not on the level of a Baltimore Ravens or a Pittsburgh Steelers. And you could say the same about the Raiders, right? But the Raiders have beaten the Chiefs, which does give them some credit. And for that reason, I do believe that the Raiders do win this game, and that the Browns being favored here is just very mind-boggling. I wouldn't expect the Browns to be favored in this game. And for that reason, yeah, I'm definitely going to say go Raiders +2.5.
Yeah, a few factors in this game to consider. Obviously, it's Browns home. The Browns are the 5-2 team. The Raiders are the 3-3 team. The Raiders have looked up and down, but they've looked great at certain portions of the season. And so I feel like that's why the Browns are favored. That being said, this whole game relies on Josh Jacobs. I think if Josh Jacobs gets going, he will carry the entire Oakland offense, right? Obviously, you've got the studs. You've got Darren Waller. You've got Nelson Aguilar's actually looked great. Kind of, he had some drops, but overall, he's looked okay. And then Hunter Renfrow, Henry Ruggs. You've got some good players on the receiving end, but the offense runs through Josh Jacobs, literally. And so if Josh Jacobs can get going, obviously he couldn't get anything going against the Bucs. That's one of the best run stoppers in the league. And so they were able to limit Aaron Jones. If you're able to limit Aaron Jones, you can limit almost anyone in the league, in my opinion. And so if the Raiders get the run game going, like for example against the Chiefs, Jacobs had 2 touchdowns on 23 carries, 77 yards. Not the greatest yardage performance, but those 2 touchdowns came in clutch. So again, with the Saints, you had Josh Jacobs with 27 carries, 88 yards. He's grinding out those games, and if they're in a position to run the ball that much, then they've got a good shot. I like the Raiders this season, and I like them against the Browns. I don't think the Browns are very good. They almost lost to the Bengals, who have a porous defense. They did great. They had a great showing offensively, I will say that, but the Raiders' defense is not bad. It's not terrible. It's mediocre at best. It's bad. Okay, whatever. But I think the Raiders, Josh Jacobs can get going. I think Darren Waller can get going. I like the Raiders this game. I'm actually going to put this in my top 5 since the Browns are favored. I'm just a Browns hater. I just don't like the Browns one bit. Me being a Steelers fan. And so I'll go with the Raiders plus 2.5.
Yeah, I agree. This looks like a good money bet. Even though it's not in my top 5, I may bet it on the side. And, that's the beauty of us both having our top 5 right. People can pick and choose based on who they like. Right now, they should be going with you, though, because you've been on a hot streak, 4-1 2 weeks in a row. I think, right?
I'm going a little risque this week.
Yeah, you are. I noticed. All right. Next bet.
I think Sagar had something to say about this one.
Oh, do you, Sagar?
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with I like the pick on the Raiders. When you look at the game against the Bucs, they were only down by 4 up until the 4th quarter, and on top of it, you had one of the best run defenses, if not the best run defense in the NFL against a banged up line, and Josh Jacobs just didn't have the performance that he needed to carry that game. But I could imagine it being totally different this week against the Browns, who also have lost Odell Beckham too. So factor that in as well.
Great point.
I think Nelson Aguilar, in my mind, is primed to have a big game. I just think he's been coming up clutch in the last few weeks, and when the Raiders need him, and I think that maybe I just have a hunch he could be a breakout player this game.
He could. It really depends on who the Browns decide to shadow with Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward has been a great cornerback. But yeah, if they put Ward on Ruggs, I believe Aguilar will have a great game and vice versa, or Hunter Renfrow. But I think Darren Waller, honestly, he's just shown up every single game, and I think he'll be the X factor along with Josh Jacobs. And also, last time, I mean, James Conner rushed for 20 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown against the Browns. And so the Browns' run defense, they're beatable. And I feel like Josh Jacobs can get it going against the Browns here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a key factor and a narrative that's been going on lately is, Odell Beckham is injured and out for the season. Is that a good or bad thing for Baker, right? You think immediately it's a bad thing, but, in the prior example, I think when Odell was injured last, it kind of opened up Baker to throwing to more people. And we'll see if that holds any weight. And this will be a good game to test if that theory or that narrative has any truth to it.
Baker sucks.
You just had to get in there. Okay.
He's not good.
Hey, man, 22 for 23, 297 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Again, I will give him that. That was a great performance. Even against the Bengals defense.
Yes.
That was a great performance.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to the next game. So the next game we have is going to be the Minnesota Vikings and their sorry asses plus 7 points against the Green Bay Packers minus 7 points. I mean, is there really anything to say about this? This is like
none at all.
I'm going to jinx myself by just saying that, but man, just take the Packers minus 7. That Bucks game was a blip on the radar. Other than that game, they've looked amazing. Davante Adams being back is just scary, man. I faced him in fantasy, and that man had 190 yards before the half or something crazy like that. And it's insanity.
He did have an insane game, and Davante Adams is rolling right now. He's got that momentum. And the first game they played the Vikings week 1 as well. That was a close game. Mm-hmm. it was decently close. It was 43-34, right?
Yeah.
Vikings were trying to make a comeback towards the end of the game. In garbage time, they scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to make it that 34 score. But before that, it was 43-26. And so it really depends on, is Dalvin Cook healthy? Is he going to play this game? Will Adam Thielen have a performance like week 1? Or Justin Jefferson? Justin Jefferson has been breaking out. Is Aaron Jones going to play? A lot of question marks this game. And for some reason, I don't feel like it matters. I feel like the Packers will steamroll. The first time it was against the first time they played the Vikings this season, it was in Minnesota. This time around, it is in Green Bay. So I feel like this game script is really pushing it towards the Packers, and I don't think they'll have any problem with the Vikings this time around again.
One injury update I want to give. I just briefly check through Twitter before we recorded. I do believe Dalvin Cook is going to be suited up to play this game. So if that impacts you in any way, just keep that in mind. But yeah, I don't think it'll. I think Aaron Rodgers is more than enough to destroy the Vikings. So yeah, I think we both picked not the Vikings. Both picked the Packers -7, and it is in our top 5. Sagar, what do you say?
I agree with you. I wish the spread was 0.65, but I think the Packers are going to have a good game here. I think the really interesting move is actually to the over 52.5. And I don't know if you do sports betting on Bovada, then personally, I would go with the parlay here on those two. When you look at the Packers, they're probably going to score more than 30 points. And that's just based off of how the offense has done. They're 4-0 against teams that give up an average of 25 points or more on defense a game, and the Vikings fit that narrative. So I expect Rodgers to shred it up, and you get that over pick too.
Yeah, no, that's going to be interesting. Vikas did mention that the last game was a pretty high-scoring affair. If I remember correctly, he said somewhere like a combined 70 points. And garbage
Over
time
70.
could factor into that. So you're right, Sagar, that's an interesting line to keep an eye on.
All I know is Devontae Adams, he will feast.
Yes, he's a monster. And, if I think someone between us three traded him away. I don't remember who that was, but...
And his 2 best weeks of the season came against us.
Yes, they did.
Fantasy. Shame.
So, thanks for that, Mr.
Yeah, Sagar.
Jeez. Okay. Aside from the fantasy talk, let's move on to the next game. We have the New England Patriots versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, this game is very important. It decides the future of the Patriots season. If they lose this game, there's really no shot at them for winning this division. The Bills will run away with it. An interesting analytical report that Mike McCarthy said is that if you win 4 divisional games, you're more likely to win win your division. Who would have thought? Maybe winning 5 will get you an even better shot. Who knows? Anyway, getting back to the point, Patriots must win this game. They're given 3.5 points. I don't know how I feel about it though, just because Cam, ever since COVID, has not looked the greatest. Their defense is in shambles. I mean, all your best players, aside from Gilmore, did decide to opt out. Their running game looks okay, but you need to have a good passing and running game combo. We'll see what they do. I'm staying away from this game. If I had to bet, I would trust Belichick, knowing it's a must-win game, and go Patriots. Plus 3.5. I do think they win this game. I may bet a few bucks on that plus 170 for that straight-up pick 'em, but yeah, I'm staying away.
This one's tough, right? In the beginning portions of the season, Josh Allen looked like an MVP candidate. He was tearing up every decent defense that came in his way. And then the last 3 games, he hasn't even put up 20 points, right? And so you're kind of concerned now, right? The Patriots, they know how to limit a guy. And I forget the historical, Josh Allen's historical performance against the Patriots, but they just haven't looked good as of late. Zach Moss has come back, and he looked like he kind of revitalized the offense a bit, but you only beat the Jets 18-10. That is concerning.
That's a lot in my book.
The Patriots are so much better than the Jets, and the fact that the Jets were able to limit Josh Allen is insane to me. And it's also, we'd be remiss to mention, like, that Bills defense is not what it was last season. The Bills are where they are right now due to their pancake easy schedule, and because of, the early games, how Josh Allen was doing.
Yeah.
So it's tough, right? You have to think that the Patriots are going to be coming back with a vengeance. I think Cam, he suffered from missing those games with COVID. Gilmore also missed games with COVID, and so it's tough on the Patriots to be having these personnel switches all the time. And we'll see. The Bills' defense is exploitable, and I feel like Cam needs to bounce back. I think he knows that he needs a good game, and the Bills just look bad as of late. And so if I had to bet, I don't know. The Bills are just so much. They have so much promise this season. They are the contenders in that division, and I would have to side with the Bills for this game.
Okay, interesting. Okay. What do you have to say about this, Sagar? I thought I heard him unmute.
He did.
Hello?
Yeah, hey, what's up?
Hey, yeah, so as you all know, I'm a lifelong Patriots fan, and I would never bet against the Patriots when they need to win. That said, I will say since, honestly, end of last season, even Game 17, it was a must-win game for them against the Dolphins. They lost that. I think they lost in the playoffs after that. They had a few good games early on with Cam where it looked like it was going to be totally different Patriots. Their defense was humming along despite losing a lot of the talent they had developed over years. That said, the last few games with the injuries to the quarterback and a lot of changes, they haven't seemed like the same Patriots. The Bills were rolling, and I think the addition of Stephon Diggs has made that offense a totally different game. When you look at Allen 2 weeks ago, I think there was a lot that you could put onto the weather of that game too, versus last week against the Jets. I don't know what happened. He just wasn't looking as good. That said, I think he's going to run a lot this game. I think it's going to be a chess match. I think this is where the Bills, if they're going to take over this dynasty, this next 2020s from the Patriots, now is the year to do it. Again, I would never bet against Belichick, just from history. That said, I think the Bills have a shot here.
Gotcha. I mean,
yeah, looking at the historical performances, actually, last year the Bills lost both games to the Patriots.
Yep.
Josh Allen, one game he passed for 208 yards, the other one 153. He did rush both times for around 40 yards. He had a touchdown in one of them. So, yeah, his legs are going to be a big factor in this game. He is their goal line back. And so we'll see how it goes. The Bills do need a win here against the Patriots, I feel, but the Patriots they're in a must-win territory. I don't know.
It's either
I'd take mine back. Maybe I'd go with the Patriots. It's just such a close thing here, man.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. And that's why, I'm actually, if you guys have extra few dollars laying around, bet that plus 170. I really feel like the Patriots win this game, despite having a terrible performance last week. So this could be like a little sleeper that'll put a couple bucks and make a couple. All right, let's move on to the next game. The next game we have is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be oh man, they're so bad. It's going to be the New York Jets versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And the line right now is 19.5 points. Very impressive. I know we have this rule, at least I do, where when you're given such a big spread, just don't bet. You just have no idea if, it's really hard to predict a blowout, right? Sometimes you think a blowout will happen and it won't. Sometimes you think there's going to be a game that's going to be low scoring, and it turns out to be, one of the more fun games of the year. So I'm just not touching this bet. If you had to bet, go Chiefs minus 19.5. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying that. But yeah, if you had to pick Chiefs, but don't bet this game. Please don't.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, you're betting on both the Jets defense being terrible and the Jets offense being terrible, and a lot of that comes down to Jamison Crowder, in my opinion. I think he is the only reliable piece on that Jets offense. And hey, Mims looked good last week in his debut, but overall. Jameson Crowder is the guy that defenses are scared of. And it's tough. That point spread is insane. And, the Jets had a good showing against the Bills. They lost 24-0 against the Dolphins. They lost 30-10. So you can see where this spread comes from. But yeah, it's just too large. You have to factor in garbage time. If you're betting that spread, it's just tough. Honestly, I wouldn't touch it. Because, the Chiefs could just run off the clock with Le'Veon and Clyde Edwards. And so there's going to be a bloodbath, but how much of a bloodbath? Maybe 15 points.
Yeah, we'll see. And, the other thing to keep in mind is that looking at this year, Patrick Mahomes doesn't need to put up 40 points. Last week they scored on all three sides of the ball. They scored on special teams, they scored on defense, and they scored on offense. Patrick Mahomes didn't really have to do much, so he's mature enough and knowledgeable enough under great coaching to not necessarily have to be a gunslinger all the time. And I think that's a very great aspect of him that makes him the best player in the league. And so yeah, he doesn't really need to score.
You don't have to gunsling. If you're up 20, you shouldn't have to gunsling. That's just
but you know how, for example, Bruce Arians likes to step on team throats. If you're up 30, if you're up 40, he's still going to pass that ball down the field. So, the Chiefs, they'll play a control game. I don't see the spread being attainable. Sauger, do you have anything to say about this? I don't think you buzzed in, so...
I was just going to say, this is one I would live bet with rather than try and do anything before. I think if you could potentially get a 20-something spread or get pretty good odds if the Chiefs get the ball first, run downfield and score. The Jets didn't let up a touchdown last week, and they still lost. They had 4 passing yards. I don't know what you do here. I think the Chiefs, just because they're such an offense, that maybe their second team, if they just send it out at the beginning, maybe the Jets have a shot. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jets fans.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I wonder if Sam Darnold comes back, because he admittedly does run the Jets offense way better than Joe Flacco does.
Yeah, just stay away, boys and girls. Don't touch this bet. Next game we have is going to be a great game. It's going to be the Steelers against the Ravens, 2 division rivals. This
heated ones at that.
Yes.
Oh, that's gonna be a great game. And Ravens home.
Yep.
So historically, the Ravens usually win their home games. The Steelers win their home games. As of late, the Ravens have just been better. Just because of last year, look, Mason Rudolph was playing. All right, cut the Steelers some slack. They performed pretty well, and it's an interesting one. I'm leaning towards the Steelers personally. They're not favored in this game. If I had to bet, I would bet the Steelers. They are run stoppers, though it's hard to do. It's hard to run stop against a team like the Ravens, who have got multiple players, multiple different things they throw at you, and the Ravens are a smart team. They're well coached. They know how to game plan against a team like the Steelers, especially since they've seen them so many times. But I'm going for my team this time around, especially since they're plus 3.5. It says.
Yes.
It's not in my top 5, but I think I'd lean towards Pittsburgh in this one.
It is in my top 5, and man, the Steelers look like such a complete team. So do the Ravens, but at this point in time, Lamar Jackson, amazing runner. This year, in terms of passing ability, hasn't been as great as he was last year during his MVP season. Seems like defenses and teams are figuring him out a little more. Despite that, he can still gash through the defense for runs, and he can hit receivers. I feel like the Steelers' defense overall is just so good that they can stop the run. And Ben and those receivers, man. You have Deontay Johnson, who I don't know the status of, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, and then, even James Conner can pass catch a little bit. So I feel
one thing to note as well is the emergence of their special teams. I think they've got a great special teams this year.
Yes.
They have one of the most underrated returners in the league in Ray McLeod. I think he's looked
He's really
great
good.
so far. And so that special teams can also be a big factor in this game. I'm just being a homer. I'm picking the Steelers, but because of my bias and because I love this rivalry, it's a great one. It's a very historic one too. I'm going to stay away from it in my top 5.
No, I'm definitely putting this in my top 5. I think Steelers win, and you're giving them 3.5 points. They're undefeated for a reason. I think they continue that streak. And
Go Steelers.
Yes. Sagar, you have anything to add? I believe
The Ravens are coming off a bye week. That's something to keep.
Good point.
They are correct.
Yeah,
So
I
their
don't remember
momentum
them.
is gone.
Yeah, I don't remember them playing last week.
I was thinking they're preparing for their rivals. I think they're going to be ready for them at home, and I like the money line, of course, on the Steelers. With that said, I don't know. I think the Ravens have a better defense in a way.
I don't know. Carson Wentz was able to put up 28 on them, so that messed up our bets a couple weeks ago too.
The one key addition, though, is Yannick Ngakoue. I hope I said that right. They added him, and man, oh man, that could be very scary.
That is a good point. That's another reason I'm just staying away, bro.
Yeah. It's a good point, Sagar. Yeah, definitely to keep in mind. Still in my top 5, though. I like the Steelers, and I think giving them points, even if it's a close game, that means you win. So,
Patrick Mahomes was able to yam on him with, throwing touchdowns to, I think he threw 4 touchdowns, one to 4 different players: McCole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, Anthony Sherman, Eric Fisher. And so, the fact that the Steelers also spread the ball around, maybe that gives the Ravens some fits. That was also Ravens' home, Chiefs versus Ravens, and that was a blowout. And so we'll see. I'm sure the Steelers will be studying that game, seeing what the Chiefs did well against the Ravens, trying to exploit the Ravens. Lamar Jackson was not able to pass for over 100 yards that game. And so if you can get that early lead, I think that's huge. So I feel like if the Steelers can score early, which they have been this season, surprisingly, they're usually not very good at that. If you can score early, I think you can exploit the Ravens.
yes, 100%. All right, moving on to the next game for Week 8. We have the Tennessee Titans against the Cincinnati Bengals. And, last week we predicted that the Steelers would win. We are very thankful to Steven Gostkowski for missing that field goal. It really helped us out there. We covered, and, we actually had Steelers plus points, and they straight up won. So that's good for us. That being said, they're still a really great team. Their offense is clicking. Derrick Henry did pretty well against the Steelers, despite, people predicting that he wouldn't. I feel like they just run over the Bengals. The other thing to notice is I think Carlos Dunlap, I forget which. Dunlap, he is now gone from the Bengals. He has been traded.
He wasn't really playing this season anyway. He wasn't really playing this season.
Yeah, and so that's that's another thing to keep in mind. I think Burrow scores a lot of points, so you may want to look at that point line. But yeah, Titans win by more than a touchdown, and the fact that it's -6, yeah, take the Titans.
Derrick Henry only rushed for 3.8 yards a carry against Steelers. I don't think he did well at all. And so also the touchdown was handed to him as well. So I don't want to take away from how good the Titans are. The Steelers are great run stoppers as well, just like the Bucs are. But yeah, the Bengals defense, they look all out of sorts. They couldn't contain Baker Mayfield, and I hate Baker Mayfield. He sucks. And as Joe Burrow's great, I think he can keep it a relatively close game because of just his tenacity alone. He's been keeping him in most of the games that they've played in. He's looked pretty good. That Titans secondary is not the greatest. I will say the referees did not do the Steelers any favors last game. You and I have talked about this personally multiple times, but the referees got the Titans back in the game, but they don't really need to do that in this game. It's Titans versus Bengals. Come on, man. And it's Titans -6. I feel like the Titans can win by more than a touchdown. Derrick Henry can run all over the Bengals, and that man Ryan Tannehill, he'll have a good time against that secondary. If Joe Burrow had a good time, Ryan Tannehill's gonna earn his pay. Let's just say. And so yeah, actually, this is in my top 5. I have Titans -6 in my top 5.
Yeah, definitely. And I that's a tempting thing to put in your top 5. I do not have them in there, but I may bet it on the side.
It's a riskier one, right? Joe Burrow keeps it close. He likes that little spice in the end of the game. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the Titans. They just look great this season.
Yep. All right. Next bet we have for this week is the Chargers and the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos came off a really terrible loss to the Chiefs, which is expected. But man, Drew Lock, did he play? I didn't really watch this game, but just based off the season, like I'm not really impressed by Drew Lock. Melvin Gordon,
injured.
huh?
He's been injured.
He's been injured. Okay. Melvin Gordon got a DUI, but somehow just slipped through all the radars, except the one that tests for alcohol. Philip Lindsay is concussed, so there goes their dynamic rusher. Royce Freeman and Melvin Gordon, I guess, are the runners. Man, I don't like the Broncos. They're just a bad team. Justin Herbert finally got a win, and I think he continues that this week, and I think they do just straight up beat the Broncos by more than 3 points. Definitely take the Chargers -3 in my top 5.
Yeah, the Chargers, the Broncos defense, they're banged up. They're giving up points. The Chargers have been scoring a ton since Justin Herbert's come back. Since Justin Herbert's started as being the starter. He's just putting up yards, points. He's getting those deep passes. He can dink it. He can run when he needs to, too. And I think he'll definitely be able to put up quite a few points against the Broncos defense. Now, the problem is Melvin Gordon, as bad as he looked last week, he had 2 fumbles. He can break out any game, right? And the Chargers defense they're not the greatest. This season, last season they looked pretty good. This season they've taken a step back. That being said, I feel like the X factors in this game for the Broncos will be Drew Lock, seeing if he can come back, try and get some momentum building after his, I think he had a shoulder injury, but he has not looked good this season. Then you've got Tim Patrick. He's looked great, honestly, regardless of who the quarterback is. He's done well. This is a breakout season for him. And then who's their tight end? Noah Fant. I think Noah Fant just came back from injury. He started getting things going at the end of last game, and so we'll see what they can do against that Chargers defense. But this is actually in my top 5. I've got Chargers -3, even though they're the away team. I think Herbert will be able to light up Mile High.
Yep, and we do both have them in our top 5. So we're going to move on to our next bet. I believe we're reaching the home stretch. We have the Saints -4 against the Chicago Bears and 4 points. This is a very interesting game. Not really. I just think the Saints just blow out the Bears. I'm taking the Saints -4. It's in my top 5. Enough said.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is tough. The Bears defense, although they didn't look great against the Rams, they are still a great defense. And this game really comes down to, is Michael Thomas going to be healthy? If he's healthy, I think the Saints will definitely destroy the Bears. I don't care how good your defense is. Those slants are just killer. And then I believe Allen Robinson is in concussion protocol.
Yes, he is.
There goes your number one. There goes your entire offense, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
The Bears looked porous against the Rams offensively. Nick Foles couldn't get anything going, and David Montgomery couldn't get anything going. And without Allen Robinson, who do you have to cover? Mooney?
Who was like a 5th-round pick. Yeah, it's
right.
like...
he looks good.
He looks great. There's another 5th-round pick who looks a little bit better. His name is Chase Claypool. But
Chase Claypool
I think the Saints win.
Chase Claypool was a 2nd-round pick.
Oh, he was a 2nd-round pick?
He was.
Then I'm thinking of someone else. I think the Steelers definitely took someone in the 5th round, and I'm just forgetting their name.
Antonio Brown.
I thought he was a 6th round. Man, I need to get my draft.
He probably was a 6th round, I forget. But yeah, this is definitely, I believe the Saints got this on the Bears.
Yep.
I think they got a lucky win against the Bucs, in my opinion, and their wins I'll give Nick Foles credit against the Falcons. He looked amazing. But other than that, he just hasn't looked great. I mean, he beat the Panthers. The Panthers have some promise, but they're not a premier team in the league. The Saints are a contender. I don't think the Bears will have enough to beat the Saints.
No, not at all. And top
especially
5 for
with
me.
that offense.
Top 5 for me.
How is it not in my top 5, honestly?
Yeah, I was surprised. Okay, so next bet we have is going to be the San Francisco 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks. And man, this game, I'm very interested to see what happens. That Seattle defense is not good. I think their leading sacker is Jamal Adams, which is just sad because he's not even a lineman. Like,
That's
it's bad. It's bad.
They did get Dunlap.
Yeah, they did. Let's see how he
Dunlap should
does.
be
Is he
great
even
for
going to
their
play? I don't
defense.
know. I think it'll be too
Probably
short
not.
notice.
I think he has to clear COVID protocol
Yeah.
first, and so I don't think he'll play this game. But yeah, the Niners, they looked great last week.
Mm-hmm.
Great bounce back games against the Rams and the Patriots. And problem is, I don't think Deebo Samuel is going to play. Jeff Wilson Jr. looked great, not going to play. Raheem Mostert, not going to play. Tevin Coleman is a question mark, but I believe the Niners, they use their offensive pieces very well. I believe Jimmy Garoppolo will just throw it a ton to George Kittle. It'll be a great game. Obviously, these division rivals, they had a great Week 17 game last year. And so hopefully we get a repeat of one of those. I'm not touching this one just because they do play each other very close. And so I'm not touching it. If I had to pick one, I'm a stan for Jimmy Garoppolo, so I would go with the Niners and the points. But yeah, I'm not. It's not in my top 5 this week. My top 5 is a little risque, but a little fun.
Whenever I think a game is going to be close, I typically lean to pick the team with the points, and so I would probably go Niners +3. But who knows? Like, this game is very hard to predict. All right.
Yeah, and we can move on from this one. We agree. I think the Niners.
Yeah. Sagar, you want to add something?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking too that both teams are without their lead rushers too. Carson's out,
Good
Hyde
point.
is questionable. So I wonder too, I believe the spread is even higher than the Vikings and Packers.
That's a
For the
7-point spread.
over-under.
Yeah.
Sorry, for the over-under.
Oh, gotcha.
So I see this one as maybe even favorable to go under.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You see the Niners, they really rely on them, whereas the Seahawks, they do not. They're not a run-first team at all. They're up 20. Russell Wilson's still going to throw the ball. The Niners, they rely on that rush. That is an integral part of their offense. So it could be more of a hindrance to have their starters out, but the Niners, they just have some great running backs. They know how to put them in the situations that are advantageous to them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we can move on from this game. I do believe this is the last one. If not, it's one of the last. Next bet this is the last one. This is going to be the Thursday night matchup. It's going to be between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -11 points against the New York Giants. And oh boy, this is going to be a fun game to watch. I'll let you go because I know you probably have some strong opinions about this one.
Yeah, this is the Monday night game.
Monday night. Pardon me.
You give I think the Giants, they play Thursday night. They'll play Monday, so they get a really long week to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't prepare for Tom Brady, and I think the Giants, they've done it in the past, but they've had way better teams, and it was in a bigger situation. Last year, I believe twice at Sagar, and so last year the Giants were able to beat the Bucs barely, and it was because Matt Gay missed a game-winning field goal, I believe, or a game-tying field goal. I don't think the Bucs really need that with the offense that they've got running right now. Ronald Jones running so great. You've got Leonard Fournette back. He actually looked great last week in as the RB2 for the Bucs. The Bucs are just putting up points. Daniel Jones cannot score. They're not going to be able to rush the ball at all. The Giants are, and they already had a porous rush offense, and now you're going against the best rush defense in the league. So you're not going to get that going. The Bucs secondary is suspect, but Daniel Jones, he's going to have a terrible time against that Bucs defensive line. Probably, I'm going to predict they're going to force 2 fumbles on Daniel Jones this game, and I just believe the Bucs are just going to demolish the Giants. Even though it's Giants home, that turf hopefully the turf monster doesn't get Mike Evans, but I don't think it matters much. I love Tyler Johnson. I think that was a great pick for the Bucks in the 5th round.
I think that's what
I think he's emerging.
Yeah,
probably. And so I think the Bucks, he's emerging now as a great, reliable wide receiver. Scotty Miller's looking great. Rob Gronkowski's catching more nowadays with OJ Howard. There's not much to say. You just take the Bucks, honestly. Even though it's a large point spread, I think the Bucks are going to mollywop the Giants this week.
Yeah,
especially on a big stage like Monday Night Football.
Yeah, and that's the reason I didn't touch it, just at -11. But yeah, dude, Giants offense, league worst, I believe, like maybe behind the Jets. And yeah, the Bucks defense is up there, top 5 defense.
Not a good year for New York football.
And yeah, I'm starting the Bucks defense in fantasy, so that's going to be really fun. And I believe this is the last game. Sagar, do you want to chime in? I don't think I heard him ring in.
Yeah, so I think the only thing to watch out for, I guess, on both sides of the ball is, so the Bucks have had a lot more penalties this year that have really dragged down the peak performance of their offense and has, killed drives before they've gotten started. So that's one thing to keep in mind against the Giants team, who against Brady traditionally has been able to put him in positions like that. The only other thing to keep in mind is that the Giants offense receives a big boost up this week with the addition of Sterling Shepard. So just 2 things to keep in mind that might make the spread a little bit more closer, more favorable to the Giants side. That said, Bucks are going to win this game.
Definitely. I mean, you have to mention Chris Godwin is out. Devontae Freeman may not play. That Giants defense, they haven't looked bad, right? And you're right, Sagar, they do game plan pretty well against Tom Brady, but this is a completely different Giants team that can't seem to win a game even if they tried their darndest. And so the lack of a run game, if you completely eliminate the run game, it is tough to win a game. And maybe you can squeeze one out against the Washington football team or the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're not playing the NFC East right now. They're playing the NFC South, and that is going to be tough. I mean, Sterling Shepard, he's great. I don't think he's a game changer, though. Even though the Bucs secondary is suspect, I agree with you. The Bucs do kill themselves a lot with their penalties. They had 0 against the Raiders, I believe, which is insane to me. But I'm guessing you didn't watch Bucs football last year because that was the story of last season. Penalties always kill the Bucs. But Tom Brady will overcome that. I think
he's bringing that Patriot culture here. I do firmly believe that. So I think those penalties will, last week 0. I think they'll stay pretty low. Obviously, you can't replicate 0, but I think that culture shift, man, I think it's real. And so, yeah, definitely. I think
was it against it was either against the Raiders or the Packers that they had 0 penalties. One of the two, but
and look, against the Packers or the Raiders, like both games, one was 0, the other one they didn't have too many penalties. So they're trending in the right direction in that sense.
The offense is definitely rolling. It rolls much better when Chris Godwin is healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike Evans, he had a bad game. Look for him to bounce back too. I think Mike Evans will be a man on a mission this time around.
Yep. All right. So moving on, we have our top 5 picks for the week. We will just go down the list and give a short, brief explanation and go from there. And this week, there's actually a little bit of a difference between our picks, so that's interesting. So I'll go down my list first. I have the Panthers -3 against the Falcons. I think the Falcons are a joke of a team. I think the Panthers are actually a decent team that were fairly competitive against the Saints. So I'm taking Panthers -3 against the Falcons. I think pretty solid pick. And next, I'm going to take the Packers -7 against the Vikings. Right, the Vikings, again, one of those teams that are in the bottom rung of the NFL this year. Not looking too great. Aaron Rodgers got Devontae Adams back. His key offensive weapon. Aaron Jones' health is in question. If he comes back, that's even better. Packers -7, easy pick. Next, we have the Chargers -3. I think that, again, Justin Herbert will put up the points. I think he's just been on a roll. He's been in a competitive game against the Saints and the Bucs. Though he lost both of those games, they were high-scoring affairs, and it took a Brady comeback to beat the Chargers. So I do like that game as well. Next, I have the Saints -4. I think that the Bears are, again, looking and showing that they're really a pretender and not a contender. And I think the Saints, if Michael Thomas comes back, will just make it even sweeter to bet that -4 line. Definitely take the Saints -4. Finally, in the divisional rivalry game, I have the Steelers and the 3.5 points. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think the Steelers are overall more well-rounded and complete on all sides of the ball. Vikas mentioned their underrated special teams. I think all those aspects in consideration and the points, I'm taking the Steelers. So that is my top 5 for week 8, and I need to fix that. This is week 6.
And I'll just go through my top 5 while you're doing that. My top 5, plus 2.5. I think the Browns, as good as they've looked, they haven't looked good against good teams. I think the Raiders, they've looked great against good teams. They put up a great showing against the Saints and the Chiefs. And so I think against the Browns, they'll have no problem. Hopefully their role players come out. Josh Jacobs, hopefully he runs all over the Browns. I like the Raiders to actually win the game. And so I got Raiders plus 2.5. Packers -7, easy enough. They destroy the Vikings first time around. Devontae Adams demolishes that Vikings secondary. And if Aaron Jones comes back, that's just the icing on the cake, because the Vikings, they just can't seem to get anything going this season. Chargers -3. They've looked great in the previous games. They beat the Jaguars right before the bye by, I believe, 10. And so against lesser teams, I think the Chargers have a great shot of winning, and that'll reign true against the Broncos. The Broncos have looked terrible this season. Drew Lock just coming back from injury. Maybe he gets back into the groove of things, but he's only thrown 1 touchdown to 4 interceptions this season. That is not great at all. And so I believe the Chargers will take this one by at least 3. Bucks -11. I'm a homer. I think the Bucks will destroy the Giants. They've been on a roll ever since they ever since they lost the Bears. They just want to show, hey, we're kind of the greatest team in the NFL. And so the Giants defense, terrible. I don't think they'll be able to contain Brady. Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, I think those will be the X factors in the game. That 1-2 punch at running back is really valuable. Then you've got the Titans -6. I think as decent as the Bengals have looked, Joe Burrow really keeps them in the game, but the Titans are a premier offense. They're not a pretender. They showed that when they were coming back against the Steelers. And so I think the Titans, although their secondary may get pinpointed by Joe Burrow, I think the Titans will take that one by at least a touchdown.
Gotcha. And yeah, that's going to be our top 5. We have 2 games in common, and that would be the Packers and the Chargers. And, this week there's some really good picks, so hope you guys bet with us and make some money.
I went a little risque this week. I wanted to pick it outside of the box, see if, I wanted to get away from my comfort zone. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you want to start sports betting, we have our Bovada link in the description. If you like this tank, this is available at karmastyles.com. Link also in the description. Please follow us on all our socials, subscribe, do all the sorts, and thank you for watching.